Hey, all right. So as I said, specializing in all things vocal, Jim Emery, aka the Vocal Jim, he brings over 30 years of vocal experience to his speaker and singing coaching. As a leader in public performance judging, Jim brings a wealth of insights based on years of judging, coaching, and performing. Today's presentation and workshop is going to shatter the Toastmaster stereotype that vocal variety is just avoiding being monotone. So be prepared to learn a wealth of vocal delivery techniques in the next 45 minutes with vocal delivery on steroids. Let's welcome Vocal Jim, Jim Emery.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the club for inviting me this morning. So, this is a club that focuses on professional speakers, which means you have a world beater speech already. But how's your voice working in delivering it? Are people hanging on your every word, or are they ignoring your amazing material? Content is really important, but only if it's delivered well and understood and motivated. Now, the agenda for the workshop today, this is actually part of a longer workshop. I find that the more I give this material, the more material I actually bring into it. So my original vocal delivery on steroids workshop has turned into an hour and a half now. We don't have an hour and a half. But the workshop is broken up into two parts. The first part is the 5 key factors in the sound of your voice. If you're not all that keen with what your voice sounds like, part 1 is exactly that. It's how to find the resonant voice you were meant to have and produce it easily and without effort. That will have to be on another day. I'd love to come back and share part 1 with you as well. Part 2 is then how do you take that voice and look at the vocal delivery factors that will help that voice improve delivering your message and maximizing its impact on your audience. So for that resurgence of your public speaking effectiveness, this is vocal delivery on steroids. Now, just a couple housekeeping details. If you want to put your questions into the public chat, that's fine, or just jot them down. There will be a little bit of a Q&A period towards the end. Do keep your cameras on if you would. I like to be able to see the people that I'm speaking with and see, gee, I'm asking them to do something. Are they actually doing it or not? But also stay on mute because with a voice, if everyone talks at once, it gets a little bit chaotic. With that said, let's jump right into the 6, count them, 6 key factors of vocal delivery. Now, the first is probably no surprise to you, and that is pitch. That is, how high or how low should your voice go? Now, before we get into using your voice and how to vary pitch within your delivery, I'm going to go back a step and suggest maybe what will sound like a heresy to you. You have an optimum voice pitch range. That is, there's a certain pitch range for your voice and your voice uniquely that fits you the best. Now, have you ever been told, you can raise your hand if so, that a low voice is a really good thing to cultivate? That you should work on getting the lower voice because it's more effective and more powerful? Yeah, that goes around a lot. And so, since I'm a voice guy, I thought, let me look and see if I can find some research papers on that. I've been looking for over 15 years to find a single credible, scientific, peer-reviewed research paper that says a low voice is more effective than a higher voice. Now, there are lots of charlatans in the world that will be telling you to the contrary, but the research that I've done, there isn't a single research paper out there. So I did my own. I looked at professional speakers, the Tony Robbinsons of the world, or the Zig Ziglars of the world, or Patricia Fripp, or Oprah. And what I found is that voices are all over the place. If you want to be a successful professional speaker, having a low voice is not a requirement. In fact, if any of you know the speaker named Zig Ziglar, he's a motivational speaker, has been making millions of dollars for years. Zig has one of the highest voices I ever heard, and he gets paid millions of dollars to deliver with that. So it really isn't the case that to get paid, you need that deep voice. I also looked in politics where there's lots of speakers. I went back all the way to 1952 and checked out the two primary candidates in the presidential election. For those of you who don't remember your history, 1952 was Adlai Stevenson versus Dwight Eisenhower. But I looked at every election, every 4 years to see, so did the high voice candidate win or did the low voice candidate win? It's about a wash. It's almost 50-50. In fact, Barack Obama won 2 elections, one as the lower voice candidate against John McCain, and one as the higher voice candidate against Mitt Romney. So having a low voice doesn't necessarily translate into political success either. Even in the World Championship of Public Speaking, Toastmasters' own contest, high voices, low voices, all over the place will win. But what always wins in all of those contexts is a natural sounding voice. A natural voice beats low every time. Now, how do you know what is the best range for your voice? There's a cute little exercise, and we're going to do it right now. Make sure you're on mute. If you're listening to a friend of yours tell a story and you want to show your friend that you're actively engaged in listening, but you don't want to jump in with sentences, one of the ways that many of us do that is we'll say, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, what I just did was I bounded the perfect range for my voice. Right there is the bottom of my So right there is about the pitch for the and right there is probably where I should not go lower than most of the time. Now that doesn't mean I can't go down here to make a point. Of course I can. But most of my speaking probably should be above above there. The right there is about the high end of my range. And so right there is about the highest I should probably speak most of the time. Now I can go up there to make a point. Of course I can. But if you want to speak in your range and you can play with that, I'll probably lose the attention of half of you for the next 3 minutes while you're doing your Find that pitch range and then work at using it. Your identity is probably wrapped up in speaking in a different range, but try that and I think you'll find it's going to be much more effective. All right, so that's your optimum pitch range. Now that you're speaking there, let's talk about pitch as a factor in your vocal effectiveness. Now, every Toastmaster who's been to more than one meeting knows not to speak in a monotone. If I said, today's seminar covers 6 key factors of vocal delivery, I mean, you know that's silly, and all Toastmasters know that that's silly. So does just varying the pitch of your voice fix that? Well, let's say instead of that monotone that I just delivered, I delivered the beginning this way. Today's seminar covers 6 key factors of vocal delivery. Right? Has that now fixed the problem? No, if anything, it's made it worse. That may be the kind of conversation, I hope I don't offend anyone here, that may be the kind of conversation you hear at some teeny boppers at the mall, because that happens to be a habit they haven't outgrown yet. So just changing pitch for the sake of changing pitch is not going to get you there. But there are some reasons why you might want to raise or lower the pitch as you're a public speaker. If you look at why you might want to speak higher than your range, one reason might be to add some excitement. Let's say that Jennifer, your president, just heard back from TI headquarters about the status of your club, and she wants to share that with the club. She might say, I have some great news today. I just heard back from TI that we are Smedley distinguished. Right? See what I did with the height of with the pitch of my voice that brought a certain excitement to that message. That if I had just said that we are Smedley distinguished, it doesn't have the same impact. So raising the pitch of your voice will bring excitement. Now, if you talk up there all the time, people will get really tired of your excitement. So this is something you want to use occasionally, but it can have some real impact. What about speaking lower than your optimum range? Well, let's say that she had a different message from TI International that she needed to share with the club. Hello, club members. I just got information back from TI headquarters, and because of our membership loss over the last 2 years, I've discovered that we are no longer in good standing. Wow, you hear what the lower voice did? It brought a weight to that message that if I had just said we are no longer in good standing, it wouldn't have had the same weight that message would. So you can use high for excitement, low for impact. But that still doesn't get to the use of pitch that's most beneficial, and that's to vary it for meaning. I'm going to give a sentence, 3 words, I am excited, and I can show you how to change the meaning of that sentence, just 3 words, by changing the pitch of the various words. If I just said, I am excited, okay, so that's a declarative sentence. It means what it means. If, on the other hand, I said, I am excited, wow, I just said, I raised the pitch there and then brought it back down. What I have suggested is that, well, maybe you aren't excited, but I am. So there's context there. If I said, I am excited, pitch down, up, and back down again. What I now have suggested to you is that I'm contradicting what Chris said before when she said, no, Jim doesn't get very excited. And I'm going to say, oh, I am excited, and that brings a meaning to it. You could do the same thing with excited. This is my favorite. If any of you know the Winnie the Pooh stories by A.A. Milne, there's a character in the Winnie the Pooh stories. His name is Eeyore. And if you've ever heard any of the TV specials about Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore never gets excited. So if Eeyore were to say, I'm excited, he would probably say, I'm excited. Right? So what did I do? I lowered my voice. And clearly that shows I'm not excited. So varying the pitch of your voice can actually vary the meaning of the sentences that you're delivering in. Use it all the time. It will be really helpful. So that's factor number 1 of 6. Factor number 2, volume. That is, how loud should I speak? Well, if you're speaking in person, you need to speak loud enough to be heard in the back of the room, and not so loud as to blow away the people in the front row who will end up doing this. So you need to be able to find that volume level that works for everyone in the room. If you're in a big room or if you have a small voice, use amplification. Get a PA system and be on mic, because even if you can be heard in the back by shouting, you'll get so tired by the time you're done giving your workshop that you won't be effective. Don't be afraid to use amplification. Now, a lot of us do speeches like this one this morning online, and you want to do a virtual sound check before you start. So always get on early. I got on and I asked Jennifer about volume levels for my speaking here. You want to be able to know if your mic level is right, if their speaker level is right. You also want to do the following, and this is a little nit, but I've seen failures in this area all the time. Zoom in particular has a feature, if you go into the audio settings feature, that does automatic volume adjustment. Turn that off. Turn it off. Why? Because if you decide to get really loud, you'll find out that Zoom will say, oh, that's too loud, and it will cut you back to the point where sometimes it'll cut your sound off altogether. And I actually heard an international contest speech once where that happened. We missed the punchline of an entire speech because it was delivered too loud, and Zoom automatically got rid of it. Other than that, there's certainly variations in volume. You might want to speak louder than normal just for power. If any of you were ever a Pathways ambassador and you were trying to get your group of evangelists excited about going out and carrying the Pathways message, you might have delivered a message to the team to get them excited this way. You know, we have the people, we have the tools, we have the desire, and we're going to do this. All right, see how the volume brings a certain power to that message that if I had just said, and we're going to do this, doesn't have the same impact that it would otherwise. High school football coaches have discovered this a long time ago. You might also, though, want to speak softer than normal. And soft has a particular impact on an audience. If you're speaking to that same audience and you say, you all know that we're well prepared, but we also have a secret weapon. Right? You see how that brings you right on the front edge of your seat? Oh, a secret weapon. Now I have to know what this is about. So soft can actually bring an attention that loud cannot. Now, if you speak that way all the time, or you speak that way all the time, people will get tired of either one. But use them on occasion where you need that extra special impact. And I think you'll find both loud and soft have their impact. Other than that, vary it as you go to keep up interest. Third factor, we've talked about pitch, we've talked about volume. Third factor is diction. That is, how do we pronounce our words? For most of us, most of us use a conversational diction. It's the same sort of diction we would probably use if we were in our living room talking to a friend. And for most of us, that works just fine. If anyone has ever told you maybe in a speech eval that you mumble, or if anyone has ever often says, I'm sorry, what did you say? You might want to be a little crisper with your diction. But for most of us, conversational works pretty well. There are times when you want to speak with a little bit more deliberate diction. One is for a bigger audience. The bigger the room and the more number of people between you and the people in the back row, the more easily it is not to be understood. So for a big crowd or for a big venue, use a little crisper diction. And that's true whether you're on microphone or not. Most soundboard people don't know that they need to do a boost at 3,000 hertz to get the consonants heard. So you're still going to have to use that deliberate diction. Now, also, if you're delivering to an audience that has non-native English speakers in the audience, then you probably also want to be a little bit crisper with your diction so that they can understand every word. If you're a little bit sloppy with your diction, it's a little bit hard to understand what it is that you're saying. Sometimes even for the English speakers, but certainly for the non-native speakers. And if you yourself are a non-native English speaker, you might also want to crisp your diction up just as strongly as you can. It's been my experience that if you're not terribly comfortable with English, often you will demonstrate that lack of confidence by letting syllables drop out of multisyllable words. So be deliberate on both ends of the non-native speakers. Now you also want to be more deliberate if there's a point that might be complicated or that requires a specific understanding. For example, if at the last meeting someone probably said, now our January 20th workshop time has been changed. It's now going to end at 9:30, at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, so that we can all get to the contest. See what I did with my diction? If I had just said, our next meeting is going to end at 10 a.m. Standard Time so we can get to the contest, probably half of you missed that. And that was a key point to put on your calendar. Now, I also made a discovery. One other place where you want to use a little crisper diction is in softs. I don't know if you noticed in my little statement in the last point that I said, but we have a secret weapon. If I had said, but we have a secret weapon, you often don't get that. And that was a discovery I made on my own. I won't claim to be the only person who ever did. But if you're speaking softly, you need to crisp up that diction even more. Okay, so that's half of the diction factor. Let's look at another one. A friend of mine, actually in the singing world, once told me, and I've lived by this ever since, beauty is in the vowels and passion is in the consonants. Now, if you were with a friend, you're all in California, or most of you are, and you went out to the coastline and you were watching a beautiful sunset over the Pacific, chances are pretty good if you commented to your friend, you would not say the following sentence the following way. Oh, what a wonderful sunset. Right? It just doesn't work very well, right? So if you're talking about something that's beautiful, you can soften up your consonants a little bit, and that brings a beauty to the delivery. This also works very well if you're a conflict resolution kind of person. Maybe you even do that for your job. Telling someone, no, we have to stop shouting at each other. That probably doesn't stop them shouting from each other. If on the other hand you said, no, we really have to stop shouting at each other, just the softening of those consonants brings calm. Now, so that's the softening of consonants, but the passion is also in the consonants. And we have a little exercise I want you to do with me, again on mute. Any of you who took and remember any of your American history, your U.S. history, probably remember a speech, or at least the end of it, given by a patriot named Patrick Henry near the onset of the Revolutionary War. He was trying to get the Virginia militia to take up arms against the British. And he ended his rousing speech with this ending. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And that give me liberty or give me death is a phrase that probably most of you have heard at one time or another. We're going to do that phrase together, but we're going to show how you do the passion with the consonants. We're going to look at the initial consonants of give, liberty, give, and death and see what we can do with that. Before we do that, I need to explain a different concept though. A hard consonant versus a singable consonant, because it's going to make a difference. A singable consonant is any consonant you could sing a song on. So if most of you hum, you probably hum on an M song. So M is a singable consonant because I can sing on it. N is as well. L is as well. Oh. The singable consonants are L, M, N, R, V, W, occasionally, and Z. You can sing on all of those. They get a special treatment. All the rest are hard consonants, meaning that you can't sing. You can't sing on D, right, on a D sound. But what you can do is you can accentuate it. So in give me liberty or give me death, we're going to start with the G of give. If we just said give me liberty, all right, that's okay. But on the other hand, if I said give me liberty, see what I did with the G? Give me liberty. I accentuated that G and it brings a passion to that word that it didn't have before. So I want each of you to try saying give with a really strong G. Here we go. Give. Give. Again. Give. Again. Give. All right. Sounds like you're the chair for a charitable giving at the end of the year program. But it works. Give. All right. Now, we're going to skip liberty because that's a singable one for a minute. The next word after that is another give. So it's give me liberty or give me death. So we're almost done. With death, death is also a hard consonant. So I could say give me death, or I could say give me death. See what I do with the D there? So say that death with a really strong D. Here we go. Death. Death. Again. Death. Again. Death. If you have anyone else in the house with you, or if you're at the office, in the office with you, they're madly coming out to see if a terrorist has just invaded. But it's effective, all right? So we got give and death. All we need is liberty. The interesting thing is you can't do that with the L of liberty. If I said liberty, it just sounds really weird. So instead of making the L stronger, what we do is we make it longer. See what I did with the L of longer there? We make it longer. So that has turned give me liberty or give me death into give me liberty or give me death. Say that once with me again with the hard G and D and the long L. Here we go. Give me liberty or give me death. Now, not every one of you is going to use that quote in your speech, but there will be points where you really want to show your passion. Use those initial consonants, the hard consonants accentuated and the syllables elongated, and you're going to find the passion is going to be there in spades. So that's factor number 3, diction. Factor number 4, delivery speed. Now again, most of us speak in a relatively conversational manner, and that works for most of us. Excuse me. Again, if you're speaking to a non-native audience, then you might want to speak a little bit more slowly than you would otherwise, because keeping up with a fast speaker can be difficult if English isn't your native language. But there are also times when you want to speak faster or slower than your default conversational rate. Faster delivery brings excitement. Let's say that you're the manager of a group at your company and you just came back from a board meeting where you presented a budget for a new proposal and you had a message to deliver to your group. It might go like this. We just heard back from the board of directors. They heard our new project proposal and they liked it. It's approved. We're really going to do this. Right? So see how speeding up brought a certain excitement. I had just say, it's approved, we're really going to do this, doesn't. That speed brought an excitement all by itself. So sometimes a little bit fast can bring excitement. Now again, if you talk that fast all of the time because you want to show that you're excited all of the time, people just won't keep up and they'll start looking at their phone to see where their email is. Now, there are also times that you might want to speak slower for a deliberate point. Let's say that you have some some unpleasant news to bring to your club that might go like this. I have some sad news to share today. Our club founder passed away today. Now see how slowing it down brought a certain impact to that message that you simply wouldn't get otherwise. If you just said, our club founder passed away today, it doesn't have the same impact that it would if you slowed it down. All right, so fast for excitement, slow for a deliberate point, vary it for interest. That's really cool. We're not quite done with delivery speed, though. What is the single most extreme version of changing your delivery speed? Pauses, right? It's like the ultimate slowdown. A pause is incredibly effective. It's almost a factor all its own, but I include it in with diction. We could do a whole seminar just on pauses. I've seen lists of at least 7 or 8 different ways to use pauses. Let me give you 2 this morning. One is to set up a big point. Let's say you're giving your speech and you're getting to the point where the big point that you want everybody to go home with is just about to be delivered. This is how I might do it if I were using it in this workshop towards the end. If I said, we've covered a lot of material this morning and you've all been very attentive, but which point is the most important to remember? Now I have you waiting with bated breath to hear what is that most important point. So the pause sets up everyone to eagerly anticipate what's going to be your biggest point. You can use that very effectively. Now, If you use pauses all the time, it gets pretty odd, right? So use them judiciously, but they can be very effective. Now, to set up a big point, yes, another thing is to let a big point sink in. Let's say you made your big point and you want to let somebody digest that. A fellow that I have coached off and on as a speaker does speeches on the state of the economy for lots of financial organizations. He also does one on the impact of automation. I haven't talked to him recently. He's probably added AI to that as well. But in his speech about automation, he had a point that he said he had recently seen a McKinsey study that showed that 50%, 50% of everything we pay human beings to do can be automated with today's technology. Now that's a pretty heavy message. And he would pause and he would just watch the audience as they tried to figure out, wow, does that include my job? He would even go a step further. He'd repeat it and then he'd pause again. So if you have a big message, a big point that needs your audience to be able to digest that, put a pause in right after it and give them time to do that. Obviously, if you're doing humor, put a pause after your punchline too, so you don't step on the on the laughs. So that was number 4. Factor number 5, tone. This is one I've added recently, but I was trying to decide what is it that's missing in my message here. And I remembered back when I was a little bratty kid and used to mouth off all the time. Every now and then my mother would tell me, don't use that tone of voice with me. Some of you may have that experience yourself, right? Tone actually conveys its own meaning. Let me give you an example here. If I said the following, you canceled my appointment, I'm really angry. That works, right? I sound angry and I am angry. On the other hand, if I said, I'm really angry, you canceled my appointment and I'm really angry about that, it doesn't really work, right? It's the tone and the words don't match up. If on the other hand I said, this has been such a great day, I am happy. Do you believe that I'm happy? No, you don't, because I don't sound happy, I sound angry. So if it's words or tone, more often than not, the tone is what people will listen to. If you are going to your staff meeting and you forgot your report, you probably would say, oh my God, it's a staff meeting and I don't have my report. You wouldn't say, oh no, it's a staff meeting and oh, I don't have my report ready. That brings a whole different message to it, right? And I never heard anyone say, oh boy, it's a Monday morning, it's another staff meeting. No one ever said that, right? So look at tone, and there are lots of different tones. There are dozens, scores, maybe even hundreds of different emotions that all have their own tone. Okay, so that was factor number 5. Factor number 6, the last one, is a pretty simple one. Energy sells. If I had been introduced this way, we're really excited about today's speaker. Let's welcome him with our best professional career speakers quality applause. So how did that set up the stage for that speaker you just got introduced? Pretty poorly. You could see people in the audience are already checking their email on their phone, right? On the other hand, if you said, let's welcome him with our best professional career speakers quality applause, right now the audience is excited. Well, audiences are perfect mirrors. What you give them, they give back. If you give them a low level of energy, chances are they'll give you that back as well. On the other hand, if you give them a high level of energy, they'll probably give that back. Now, if you're high energy all the time, that can also get tiresome. But if you're going to err on the side of a little too much energy rather than not enough. So those are the factors: pitch, volume, diction, delivery speed and pauses, tone, and energy. There you go. You have everything you need to be the next Oprah. Now, how can you tell if you're doing it? How many of you have one of these? A smartphone. Sure, and probably most of you do. Every smartphone I've ever seen has a recording app on it. Record yourself and listen. Record on the phone, maybe while you're practicing your speech. Play it back and listen like an audience would listen. And if something's not just quite right, well, experiment. Try something again. And then record again. Practice, practice, practice. Record, record, record. Listen, listen, listen. Okay. That's most of the material. Let me stop now and let's open up the floor for some questions. Hopefully, I haven't covered every conceivable thing you ever thought about with your voice. So, are there some questions? You can raise your hand. I have you all on gallery view here. Chris looked like she was the first hand. Go ahead, Chris.
So you were talking earlier about the Zoom settings. So I
Yeah.
went in to go and adjust that because I do the quiet, I do the loud, I do the high pitch, but I also want to gavel so that you can hear it. And most people can't when I do that.
That's
When I
right.
went into the settings that had the auto adjust low, medium, high. Do you know offhand which setting you would actually use?
Well, I think you may be looking at the noise settings, not the one I'm talking about. The one that I'm setting says something to the effect of automatically adjust volume.
Okay, so
And
this was noise suppression.
yeah, it's not the noise one. It's a whole nother one. It's a little checkbox that if it's checked says automatically adjust the volume. If it's unchecked, it won't do that. So I would say
Okay,
always leave that unchecked, and now people will hear your gavel.
automatically adjust microphone volume.
Yeah, yeah, uncheck
Did you
that
hear the
one.
gavel that time?
I did.
Okay, there we go.
Other
Um,
questions?
Thank you.
Oh, there must be at least one more question. Yes, Jennifer.
I had one question, and this has to do with pauses. And the question comes because it happens to me. So sometimes when you're speaking to an audience and you give them and you share a point that you want them to think about, so you pause. What can happen is the audience starts internalizing that idea, and they not when you start talking again, they're not with you yet. So is there a volume, a vowel or consonant or a word that the speaker can use once they end that pause that will grab the audience's attention back? Because I have been in a speech or heard a speech, and the point was so powerful that I went down this long rabbit hole and missed the next 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes of the speech because
No, I hear you, and I've seen that happen myself.
mhm.
Actually, you should pat yourself on the back that what you just said got into people's heads, and they are thinking about, wow, what an important thing. How would that apply to my particular life? If they're thinking that way, you just succeeded.
So don't worry about it. If you don't have quite everybody with you when you in the pause, it's okay.
Yeah, now one of the things that I will sometimes do, and I saw that my friend who said the thing about, your job could be automated away, is that you might anticipate what people are thinking, and you could then, after you pause for a little bit and there's a certain bit of silence, you could then start maybe speaking yourself what you think they might be thinking. So my friend used to deliver this line that said 50% of everything we pay human beings to do can be automated away with today's technology. He would stop, and then he'd say, yeah, today's technology, 50% of everything we do. Might that be your
Oh,
job?
good question.
So he would kind of go down the path that the people themselves might be going, as well as a way of then getting them to kind of gradually come back to listen to what he's saying, because you're in effect empathizing with where their head has gone.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yep.
All right, other questions?
Not necessarily a question, but just as a comment about the energy level.
Yeah.
I come into my meetings, I'm excited to be at a club meeting, and everyone else, yep, we're here. Hi, how are you? Let's welcome our next contestant on the Professional Career Speakers show. I want to try and have that energy level up, hoping that the rest will help mirror a little bit. And it's all my other club meetings. It is even at work that I do that. And because I do one-on-one training sessions.
Yeah.
And these people, good morning, how are you today? I'm okay. Come on, let's get a little bit excited here. And I warn them, I talk fast when I am passionate about a topic, and this is something I am passionate about. And I warn them ahead of time, just because if they need me to slow down, let me know and I will. So I think a lot of the ideas that you're sharing with us today, it's not just for our particular speeches we give in a club setting. This is all good information that we apply at work. If we're in other organizations, the diction, the enunciation, that's at home. So much more than just for Toastmasters.
Yeah, that's excellent, Chris. Excellent point. One of the things that I found too as a performer over the years, and I learned this more in the singing side of things, but it applies equally well in the public speaking world, and that is that make sure that your excitement is genuine. And it's amazing how the human brain works, that we can spot fake at a moment's notice. I had a friend who used to sell used cars, and he was the stereotypical used car salesman. He come out, well, fella, what's it going to take to get you into this car today, right? And he thought that was effective, and it just sounded fake, and most of the time he didn't make those sales. But if your enthusiasm is genuine, then it turns it's infectious. And the more your genuine enthusiasm is there, the more it's hard for those in the room not to mirror that as the audience. Good point.
Yeah.
Other questions? There's a whole bunch of chat messages. Are those questions? Should I be looking there?
Not so much, I don't think.
Okay.
Jim, there's a couple of things that I have never heard before that I thought were so powerful. So number one, I'd never heard of singing consonants, and non-singing consonants, which I thought was really useful. Oh my gosh, that was really interesting. And the diction piece, especially in terms of the size of the room, because I work on some big stages. Well, not work on, but I'm involved in a very big stage event. And that is something that I can give to the speakers that will have great value, even though they are mic'd still. Still emphasizing their diction during those speeches will benefit them. So I thank you for that.
It's interesting if any of you are into physics, there actually is a physics behind that. If you look at speech, most of the vowels are in the lower frequencies, in the, let's say, 80 to 300 hertz range. Most of the consonants are much, much higher. And if you want to be understood, the consonants are what make you understandable. If I don't use any consonants, it's really hard for you to understand what I'm saying. On the other hand, if I do use my consonants, it's a lot easier. And the consonants are up about 3,000 hertz. And another interesting thing about physics, and I'm a bit of a geek in this world, is that air cuts off high frequencies more quickly than low frequencies. That's why when the teeny bopper's car goes by out front, all you hear is the bass. It's because you're quite a ways away, and the treble gets filtered out by the air. Well, that's true in an auditorium too. The consonants get filtered out before they reach the back row, where the vowels probably don't. So using those consonants more clearly and crisply will mean that they'll probably get to the back row. Other questions?
Judy.
Yes, I have a distinct area vocal pattern
Uh-huh.
that shows up occasionally and is distracting. I probably cannot get it to come across, so I'll just explain. I'm from Philadelphia area,
Yeah.
and we have this thing with the word W-A-T-E-R that puts the R before the A, more or less. It's water,
Sure.
or something like that. And I have been working to eliminate that, but occasionally it pops back up and distracts me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any suggestions?
Well, it depends on who you're talking to and where they're from. I think if you're talking to other people in the Philadelphia area who hear that all the time, I wouldn't worry about it. On the other hand, if you're speaking at a national conference or even worse, an international conference in London, let's say, with the British who are very particular about their diction and their words, then you probably do need to worry about it. It's every area of the country has their own unique habits that way. I'm not a native of the state of Minnesota, but so I moved into this area years ago, and I found it very curious that the O in Minnesota sounds like this, Minnesota, right? And every word with an O sounded like that, and I had to shake my head a little bit. Oh, you must be a native Minnesotan, huh? Because I grew up in Michigan, and I don't say them that way. So every area has their habits that way. It's interesting that some of the national news anchors have to deal with this as well, because there is sort of I'll call it a North American accepted English diction that most of those announcers had to learn. Peter Jennings years ago, he was Canadian, moved to New York and had to learn not to say lieutenant anymore. The word is lieutenant. But well, that's not the way he said it in Canada. And they say, well, but most of your audience is in the United States. So yeah, there are regional things like that. If you're aware of them, just practice. So I think we're just about out of time.
We are at time. Yes.
So
Jim.
let me
Yes.
just close with a kind of a closing point. Hopefully by now you've appreciated that your voice is your most important instrument in communicating with others. If you use it effectively, you will love the results. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Jim. I love that you came out to us here on a sunny Saturday, at least in Wisconsin, it's sunny. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your information. I'll have to talk with the club officers, maybe have you scheduled to come back for that part 1 of the vocal delivery. We'll be in touch, I'm sure.
All right. I'd love to.
I want to thank everyone here for attending. If you want to be in a picture, I'm going to take a picture with a 3, 2, 1 countdown. If you don't want to be in the picture, turn your video off. So 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you for that. That is our meeting today. We're not doing a full meeting sign up for next week. We're working on doing a special panel presentation on TEDx and speakers and presenters, and I'm going to turn things over to Jennifer to do a final wrap up. If you do plan to jump over into the area contest, I did just put in the link into our chat box. So feel free, come on over. We can